Very good afternoon, students. How are you all? So, as usual, before we start this session, let's get on with the technical check. If my audio and video is proper, so please give me a reaction, a thumbs up, or okay or not okay in your chat box. I just need to know if my audio as well as video is all right or fine. If there is any problem, you can just leave a text on the chat box. Okay. So let us start with today's session. One second, students. Yeah. Okay. Let us start with today's session. Today we will start with the rest of the topics that is left with body fluids and circulation. So before we start, what we're going to discuss today, here you have your first question. Erythropoiesis starts in liver, spleen, red bone marrow, and kidney. So you have your four options. So please try to answer in your chat box. Erythropoiesis starts in. Okay, you can use the chat box to answer the questions. It's only a minute. It's a very direct question. Okay. So please try to give your answer. Even if it is wrong, it's all right. We can just correct as we move on. All right. Let's have the icebreaker. In the next coming sessions, you have to answer. Okay. As we move on, the more you interact, it's better. Okay. What is erythropoiesis? Erythropoiesis is a process of blood cells, and the site for formation of red blood cells formed in pelvic girdle, pelvic bone. Give me a second. Yeah. Let's go ahead. Okay. So you have your second question. There is no DNA in hematozoan root hair. Okay. So you have your options, and here is your question. So you have a minute to answer this question. Please try to answer in your chat box. Okay. Okay. There is no DNA in mature RBCs, a mature spermatozoon, root hair, and enucleated ovum. Yes. So can we go to the answer now? All right. So the answer for this question is in mature RBCs. Mature RBCs do not have any of the genetic material because they get devoid of all the cell organelles, including nucleus, and there is no DNA. Okay. So our option is A. So let's get back to where we stopped in the last class. In the last class, we were talking about coagulation of blood, right? Clotting mechanism of blood. So in clotting mechanism of blood, as I said, there are three important pathways until there is complete coagulation of your blood. So the first pathway was your platelet plug formation, and the second one was your first one was your blood vessels, okay, which would constrict and then move backward. That is called as vascular spasm. And the second one was platelet plug formation, and the final process is called as coagulation. And in coagulation, I told you that there are two important pathways, that is intrinsic pathways and extrinsic pathway, correct? So intrinsic pathway and extrinsic pathway, both these pathways involve around 13 factors, which are called as clotting factors. So the clotting factors are named from 1 to 13, okay? So if you see intrinsic pathway, your factor 12, okay, you can see here the names of the factors are given for your, convenience. So the factor 12 is called as Hageman factor. So when it comes in contact with the damaged blood vessels, so it will get the inactive Hageman factor will become active Hageman factor. So once the factor 12 becomes active factor 12, that helps in converting the inactive factor 11 to active factor 11. So the factor the factor 11 is called as anti-hemolytic factor. Okay, what kind of anti-hemolytic factor? It is called as anti-hemolytic factor C. Okay. So this inactive anti-hemolytic factor will become anti-hemolytic factor C. Again, this 9 is also called as anti-hemolytic factor B. So the inactive anti-hemolytic factor will become active hemolytic factor B. So this factor, that is activated factor 9, will go and bind to the factor 8 to create a complex. Now the inactive factor 8 will become active factor 8, that is anti-hemolytic factor A. So we can name this here anti-hemolytic factor A. Here you have B and here you have C. Okay. So once this complex is formed, it will help in conversion of factor 10 to 10A. And factor 10 is called as Stewart-Brod factor. Okay, so this is a common factor for both the pathways. So let us see what happens in extrinsic pathway. So the third pathway is called as, see here, what is the third factor called as? Third factor is called as thromboplastin or tissue factor. So whenever, okay, give me a second. Okay, here, okay. Whenever we have the tissue factor or the thromboplastin, this is called as factor 3. The factor 3 will help in conversion of inactive factor 7 to active factor 7. So what is our factor 7? Factor 7 is called as pro-converting. So the pro-converting will be converted to converting. Now what will happen? The active factor 7 and the factor 3, that is you have your tissue factor and you have your converting, they create a complex. So this creation of complex will convert the factor 10 to 10A. What did I tell about factor 10? The factor 10 is called as Stewart power factor, correct? No, this factor, okay, or it is also called as thrombokinase. So once we have the formation of factor 10, that will lead to that will open up to the final pathway, that is called as common pathway. Okay, common pathway is very, very important. So why common pathway is very, very important? Here, once you have an activated factor 10A in the presence of factor 5A. What is our factor 5? It is called as proaccelerin. Okay, proaccelerin will be converted to accelerin. So in the presence of accelerin, okay, factor 10A will convert, okay, prothrombin into thrombin. What is your thrombin? The thrombin is nothing but factor 2. Once you have prothrombin to thrombin, then your thrombin will help in conversion of fibrinogen to fibrin. So once you have your inactive fibrinogen into active fibrin, now these fibrins will start making a cross link and it will start constructing the clot. Okay. So the factor 13 is called as fibrin stabilizing factor, and this is very, very helpful to keep the clot in place. Okay. So this is about the coagulation mechanism when it comes to all the factors that are responsible. So you can go through this for your reference. So basically, one of the most important factors here are the common pathway factors, that is factor 2, factor 1, and what is factor 10. And then you have factor 11, factor 9, and factor 8, because anti-hemolytic factors So these are linked to your second year chapter. So it's better to understand what are these factors. Okay. So we come to the conclusion of your what do you call coagulation or blood clotting. So our next topic is blood grouping. Okay, people. So have you ever wondered why we don't try to donate blood, or why don't we receive blood for blood of any individual? So we try to understand what type of blood type they are, whether in most of your ID cards, in many of your health cards, or even in your phone apps, they ask about your blood group. Why the blood group is very significant? Because if a wrong blood group is infused into you, okay, it can lead to a very traumatic condition. It might lead to death, or it might lead to failure of very important organs, etc. So why does this happen? So that concept of rejection of blood we will understand through blood grouping. So what is blood grouping? Blood grouping was basically discovered by Carl Landsteiner. So this includes grouping of blood based on the presence of antigens. So we classify them into A, B, O grouping or RH grouping. We call it as. So let us see what is this blood grouping. So if you see the red blood cells on their surface, on the plasma membrane of the red blood cells, they synthesize a specific type of a polysaccharide, okay, or a sugar. So based on what type of sugar they have, they will be called as a particular blood group. For example, if I tell that a person has A blood group, a person will synthesize A type of sugar on their plasma membrane. So the presence of A type of sugar will give them A antigen. So that is why we call that as A blood group. Now, similarly, in the B person, the person with the B blood group will have B type of antigen or B type of sugar on their red blood cell surface. Whereas in AB type, both A type and the B type of sugars will be present on the plasma membrane. Whereas in O type of blood grouping, there is no sugar on the plasma membrane of the red blood cells. So now, how do I find out if a person is having a specific type of a blood group? Okay, so if I treat an A blood group, okay, with an anti-sera, okay, we call it as A anti-sera or B anti-sera. So if I treat A blood group with A anti-sera, now what will happen? It will start reacting and it will start coagulating. Okay, there will be like clogging. So that is why we call it as A antigen. If B blood group reacts with B anti-sera, okay, then it will cause agglutination. Then you will tell B blood group. If the blood group reacts with both anti-sera A and B, then we call it as AB blood group. If the blood group do not react to any of the anti-sera, then we call it as O blood group. Okay. So if you see A blood group or B blood group, A blood group and B blood group can donate blood to the same individuals, the people who are having A or B blood group, and they can also donate to the people with AB blood group, because AB blood group is called as universal acceptor. Since it has both the antigens, it is okay to mix any of the antigens. Okay, and then you have O blood group. O blood group is